This is Power Hour with Gabriella Power.
Hello and welcome to Power Hour. I'm Gabriella Power. Thank you for joining us. The Middle East is on the brink and President Trump has reportedly approved plans to attack Iran, but is holding off for now to see if Tehran would abandon its nuclear program. The Wall Street Journal is reporting that the president told senior aides late on Tuesday that he approved attack plans. So if we see the US get directly involved, well, that would likely mean destroying the Fordo uranium enrichment site, which is buried under a mountain south of Tehran. It's at the top of Israel's target list, but Israel needs the 30,000-pound bunker buster bombs, along with the B-2 bomber aircraft to carry them, which the US has. Now, Iran warns that if the US intervenes, it could lead to an all-out war in the Middle East, but President Trump is looking for a victory.
I was going back home to make a ceasefire. Not a ceasefire. We're long beyond ceasefire. And I said, why do you say that? Why would you say ceasefire? It's a bad term to use. Because a ceasefire means like everything's going swimmingly, we'll take a little time off. It's not. We're not looking for a ceasefire. We're looking for a total, complete victory. Again, you know what the victory is. No nuclear weapon.
Joining us now is broadcaster and commentator Jeff Cruer. Jeff, thank you so much for your time. It seems like the world is really waiting for President Trump's next move, and there are reports out of the Wall Street Journal that he has approved attack plans for Iran, but is holding off at the moment to see if Tehran would abandon its nuclear program. Really, how likely is that, and what's your sense of what's going to happen here?
Well, I mean, President Trump is a peacemaker. He wants to use military force as a last resort. I mean, he tried to have diplomatic negotiations with the Iranians for months, and they just would not give up their plans for a nuclear weapon. And they were getting so close. Israel struck. He still wanted to have a diplomatic solution here. He's still holding out hope for a diplomatic solution. But he's ready, if necessary, to take military action. And I do think, obviously, the United States is needed because they're not going to be able to take out their nuclear site that has nuclear facilities deep underground. Israel doesn't have the right plane, the right bombs. The United States does. So I think that is an option that he has approved if necessary. So I think he's reluctant to do it, obviously, but he feels like he has to because from the day he came down the escalator 10 years ago, he's been saying that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon.
Absolutely. He has been consistent for years, but it seems there is still this divide among those in the United States. You've got commentators such as Tucker Carlson expressing that they don't want America involved at all, but Trump has been consistent. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon, and his efforts in ending the regime's nuclear ambition is putting America first.
Exactly right. I mean, as he said, making sure that they don't have a nuclear weapon is America first. I mean, and really, he's America first. He's the one that sort of created this whole movement, which really hadn't been in effect for decades. He created the MAGA movement. So I understand that they're critics. We're a war-weary nation. I mean, we were in Afghanistan for 2 decades, and the results were terrible. And we were sold a bill of goods, a bunch of lies about past military engagements. So the difference is President Trump is telling the truth. President Trump is using this as a last resort. His motto is the same one that Ronald Reagan had years ago, peace through strength. So we're hoping it doesn't turn to military action, but it might.
We're watching it very closely, but let's talk about what's been unfolding in Los Angeles. Last week, we saw the streets of downtown LA turn into chaos as violent rioters took over anti-ICE protests, really. They were burning the American flag, they were looting stores, they were setting police cars on fire. And now the FBI is tracing the money to find out who is funding the riots. Listen to this.
Unfortunately, we've seen individuals whose intentions are to cause damage and to assault law enforcement. For example, last week we arrested an individual who was charged with conspiracy to commit and aiding and abetting civil disorders. These violent agitators put peaceful demonstrators at risk.
The FBI and our federal partners will continue to investigate individuals and organizations who are knowingly funding or committing acts of violence against law enforcement, as well as the destruction of property.
We are currently tracing money to determine who is providing funding for these riots. Funding crime doesn't just affect the criminals, it also disrupts entire communities. Each dollar funneled into illegal operations fuels violence, undermines law and order, and perpetuates fear.
Well, it's a pretty strong warning for those potentially funding the riots.
You know, this is what we needed during the George Floyd riots 5 years ago, and it didn't happen. And there were people funding that. There are people funding this. And obviously these protesters aren't bringing their own bionic face shields and their own weapons. They're getting it from a source, many sources probably. And that does need to be investigated. These folks are attacking police, they're attacking National Guard, they're destroying property, and they're trying to prevent ICE agents from doing their job. Remember, President Trump was elected on this platform. The American people said, yes, we want people that are here illegally to be deported. He's trying to implement that policy, and these folks are saying, no, we're not going to allow you to follow the law, follow what the American people wanted. We're stopping it. And we're funded by folks that are going to try to help us take on the police. And that's got to stop. So hopefully the FBI is going to get to the bottom of who's behind this. And I would assume that you might have a connection to a guy named George Soros, but we'll have to see.
We'll wait and see. But you are right that Donald Trump has the mandate to carry out these deportations and these ICE raids. But I want to talk to you about a major court ruling in Tennessee. The Supreme Court has just upheld Tennessee's ban on sex changes, puberty blockers and hormones for children. Now, the court ruled 6-3 that Tennessee's law does not violate the 14th Amendment's Equal Protection Clause. So it is now illegal to medically transition a child in Tennessee. And this is, of course, about protecting children from the consequences of decisions that they cannot fully understand yet. How significant is this ruling?
This is major. This is such a godsend for parents out there. I talked to a friend of mine who is unfortunately has a good friend in California, and they're now prosecuting the mother for trying to prevent a school from transitioning her child. And this is her own child. So parents need to have the ultimate say. Obviously, states and populations in states that do not want this, like Tennessee and states like Louisiana, red states who voted for Donald Trump, this is going to be a very popular decision. This is going to be implemented in at least 30 states across the United States. So this is a states' rights decision and something that I think is going to be very popular. You look at the polls, and the vast majority of Americans do not support these kinds of surgeries and procedures being done on young children. It's really, in my view, barbaric. So I think it's a great Supreme Court decision.
Absolutely. Now, we know the southern border has essentially been closed since Trump returned to power, but the numbers are absolutely amazing. That Customs and Border Protections did not release a single illegal immigrant into the United States during the month of May, not one, according to reports. So this is a massive contrast to May last year under Joe Biden, where there were 62,000 people released into the United States.
It's amazing. I mean, the border has been shut down, and this is, you know, we're just 5 months into his term, and we really haven't even gotten the big, beautiful bill passed, which is going to include all the money for the border wall and additional border security. This has been done now, and then a report came out today that 1 million people have already self-deported. So this is happening, despite the fact that the Democrats are all opposed to this. And I think it's a good first step. Obviously, the next action that has to be taken is the people that are here illegally need to be deported. And under Joe Biden, you know, millions and millions of people came in here illegally because we had an open door policy. And now we've shut the door, and we're going to have border security. And I think it's a very amazing result in such a short time. I mean, zero. That's a testament to President Trump, who has made his premier policy really from the very beginning.
This is what Americans voted for. Now, finally, President Trump is completing a personal project years in the making. This morning, he oversaw the installation of a pair of flagpoles on the White House lawn. He says they're the best poles anywhere in the country or anywhere in the world. And this is what he told reporters who were there with him.
I've had it for a long time. And the first time I had it, but you guys were after me. I said I had to focus. I was the hunted, and now I'm the hunter. It's a big difference. Big difference.
Absolutely brilliant. What did you make of that?
Donald Trump has had a great relationship with the American flag. He shares a day with the American flag. Flag Day is his birthday. And he always talks about his love of the American flag, and he wants to protect it, make it illegal for anybody to deface or burn or destroy the American flag. And this is what we've needed. I mean, the White House, to have these massive American flags there, I think is awesome. So very patriotic. He loves his country, loves the flag. The American people do too. It's amazing that we haven't had that for all these years. So it's a nice addition to the White House.
Broadcaster and commentator Jeff Cruer, thank you so much for joining us on Power Hour. Really appreciate it.
Thanks.
It's time for Media Meltdowns. Well, the biggest story in the world right now is the escalating conflict between Israel and Iran, which is being covered extensively by news outlets as we wait for President Donald Trump's move. But if you've been watching The View, well, you'd be treated to a different perspective altogether, because according to Whoopi Goldberg, Iranians living under an oppressive regime don't really have it that bad. Despite all the human rights abuses, Iranians might actually have it better than Black Americans.
And it's slow.
But let's just remember, too, the Iranians literally throw gay people off of buildings. They don't adhere to basic human rights.
Listen, here's the thing. Let's not do that, because if we start with that, we have been known in this country to tie gay folks to the car.
Where the Iranian regime is today in 2025 is nothing compared to the United States.
Hanging black people. So
it is not even the same. I couldn't step foot during this.
Wait. That's not what you mean to say. It is the same.
No, it's not. The year 2025 in the United States is nothing like if I step foot wearing this outfit in Toronto.
Killed for
I'm sorry. No, I can't have my hair showing. I can't wear a skirt. I can't have my arms out.
I'm telling you,
I literally said it was up to the Iranian people.
Yes, it is up to them. And that's why I am saying that it is the same.
Are you sure about that, Whoopi? Do you want to clarify?
You weren't saying what I heard was not what you meant.
I think it's very different to live in the United States in 2025 than it is to live in Iran.
Not if you're black.
Not for everybody.
Not if you're black.
Guys, don't go to Tehran.
Okay, and no matter how hard the other hosts tried to reason with Whoopi Goldberg, reminding her of how women are treated in Iran, nothing would stop her from continuing one of the most unhinged and idiotic rants of all time.
Because we're all women, and they are not doing well there either. They are not doing well in Iran. They are not educated. They cannot property. They cannot leave them.
I'm talking about here.
Nobody wants to diminish the very real problems we have in this country. That is no one's intent. But I think it's important we remember there are places much darker than this country, and people who deserve rights.
Not everybody feels that way. Not everybody feels that way.
Not sure if there's anyone who seems to hate America as much as Whoopi Goldberg. Joining us now is comedian and host of Blaze TV's Prime Time with Alex Stein. Alex, it is great to see you. My goodness, Whoopi Goldberg on The View. You know, we're used to some pretty anti-America content coming from her, but apparently life in America is just as bad as it is in Iran.
Well, it just shows you how hypocritical it is, because when her co-host asked her about, the LGBTQ community in Iran and how terrible they would be treated, of course, now Whoopi has to act like she's a victim. So it's just common practice that Whoopi Goldberg and all of the women on The View have to be the biggest victim, because that's how they basically trade. That's their currency, who can be the bigger victim and who can have more people feel sorry for them. So seeing Whoopi Goldberg do this and compare her plight to what's going on in Iran, I'm not shocked whatsoever. And the women at The View, they give us some of the best content accidentally. So I really appreciate her always going and giving us great sound bites like that.
Yeah, always seeing the silver lining there, Alex. But she's rightfully getting backlash from her idiotic comments as we speak, really. But it hasn't been a good week for the hosts on The View. Earlier in the week, they brought on Hollywood star Arnold Schwarzenegger, where the hosts asked him if he had a visceral reaction to watching the ICE raids. And his answer was absolutely brilliant.
But the key thing also is at the same time that we got to do things legal. That is the important thing, you know. So you got to do things legal, and those people that are doing illegal things in America and that are foreigners, they are not smart. Because when you come to America, you're a guest, and you have to behave like a guest. Like when I go to someone's house and I'm a guest, then I will do everything I can to keep things clean and to make my bed and to do everything that is the right thing to do rather than committing a crime or being abusive or something like that. So that doesn't really work in this country. So I think the important thing is when you become an immigrant to think about, okay, I go to America because I want to use America for the great opportunities that America has in education, in jobs, creating a family, all of those kind of things. Then you have to think about, okay, if I get all of those things from America, then I have to give something back.
It's so funny watching the hosts try and interrupt him, because that is not the answer that they were hoping to get. It's brilliant. He was speaking about how grateful he is for the opportunities that he's been given in America, someone who is a legal immigrant and had a successful acting career, was the governor of California, and he, of course, credited America for his success, was promoting legal immigration while calling out that violent criminals needed to be kicked out. But of course, that is not the kind of response that the hosts on The View were hoping for. So of course, Whoopi Goldberg and Sunny Hostin took it upon themselves to give him a lecture.
Don't forget, there's 90% of the people who come here are trying to do the right thing.
They're less likely to commit crimes.
And a lot of what's happening right now is people are getting snatched who shouldn't be snatched out of the country, people who have visas, people who have all those things. So we want all the right people. We don't want people who are doing bad stuff.
But they are less likely, immigrants are much less likely to commit crimes in this country than actually American-born citizens.
I love it. They invite him on their program just so they could tell him what they really think. But what did you make of the whole segment?
Well, just seeing Arnold's face is just, you know, he's just shocked. He's like, what are these women saying? I can't co-sign any of this. And you know what's crazy is all Arnold really did is he was just saying that he has American pride. You know, he's proud to be an American. You know, it stands for something. But sadly, none of the hosts on The View are proud to be an American. So when they hear him kind of give this, you know, a positive viewpoint on what it takes to become a citizen and why it's important to do it the right way, to them, it's just like, you know, needles just scratching because they don't want to hear that because they're not proud to be an American like Arnold Schwarzenegger, who realizes that he loves his country. And so it's just different. He loves his country. They don't.
Alex, far-left Congresswoman Ilhan Omar believes that America is becoming one of the worst countries in the world. Let's take a listen to what she had to say.
I mean, I grew up in a dictatorship. And I don't even remember ever witnessing anything like that. To have a democracy, a beacon of hope for the world to now be turned into one of the worst countries where the military are in our streets without any regard for people's constitutional rights, while our president is spending millions of dollars propping himself up like a failed dictator with a military parade. It is really shocking, and it should be a wake-up call for all Americans.
So one of her big concerns is that there was a military parade marking the 250th anniversary of the US Army, and that coincided with the president's birthday. And she claims that, you know, holding this parade, honouring veterans, makes Trump a failed dictator. You know, I thought Whoopi Goldberg was bad, but at least, you know, she's being direct and honest about how much she frankly hates America, straight up saying it's one of the worst countries in the world.
Well, first of all, Ilhan Omar is from Somalia, and there's evidence that she married her brother. And she's talking about parades. I'd like to see a pride parade in Somalia. That does not happen. So her fifth world, not even third world, not even fourth world, fifth world country where you can't even be an open homosexual. You could be punished by death, theoretically, where she's from. So she wants to talk about how her country is better than America. Give me a break. America is a billion times better a country to live in, work in, and just do business in, anything in America. And no offense to Somalia, I'm sure there's some great Somali people, but we're comparing apples and oranges when you compare the United States of America and a fifth world country like Somalia that literally doesn't even have gay rights. So give me a break. Ilhan Omar, she should be ashamed of herself. And she was empathetic to the terrorists on 9/11. So she's just honest. She hates this country. And that's a sad reality, is that we actually have politicians that are sitting currently in power that hate the country in which they're serving.
Clearly.
It's just so redundant or
And they're being open
counterproductive.
about it. They're literally telling us how much they hate the country.
It's sad, but it's a real thing. And they're not even hiding it. Some people aren't.
Well, let's talk about California Governor Gavin Newsome. Of course, he failed California earlier in the year during the fires. He failed once again during the LA riots, but that is not stopping him from attempting to become the leader of the Democrats as he eyes off the presidency in a few years' time. He's now launched a Substack. Take a listen to this.
There's so much mis and disinformation out there. There's so much noise. I don't need to tell you that. So the question is, how do we break through all of that noise and engage in real conversations? And that's why I'm launching on Substack. I hope you'll follow me so we can continue to engage in a two-way conversation at this critical moment in our history.
I don't know if that's the best ad for his Substack. It kind of freaks me out, but it comes after launching his podcast. So how's it going to go for him?
Well, I liked his podcast that he actually had some people with different viewpoints. I thought the podcast with Charlie Kirk was good, and where he talked about how women, shouldn't have to deal with playing against biological males in sports. And he said that there was an unfair advantage. But when I see a guy like the governor of California making a Substack, dude, you're not Tucker Carlson. Like, go be a governor. I don't know why he wants to always be on TV. He literally wants to have your job. He would rather be hosting for Sky News, I feel like, honestly, than be the governor. Because if you look at just the homelessness problems, the state's on fire, people are moving out as fast as possible, and that they're basically just being held up by these huge tech companies. If California, the northern part of California, didn't have these massive tech companies, California as a state would theoretically be on life support. So Gavin Newsome is the only guy that can continue to fail upward. And now with this Substack, I hope it gets hacked. I mean, nobody wants to read it. Go be a governor. You don't need to be a journalist. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, no, well said. Now, Italy's Prime Minister, Giorgia Meloni, has gone viral for dramatically rolling her eyes while listening to Emmanuel Macron at the G7.
Nothing official yet. They haven't turned on the microphones, and sometimes you can pick something up in the side conversations. But
I love it. But Alex, we don't know what Macron was saying. Do you have a theory?
No, but she's probably talking about how Macron got beat up by his wife. I mean, that is a soap opera. If there is a soap opera, is Emmanuel Macron and what's going on in Paris and France. Like, literally, we see it on the world stage. If people want to say that Joe Biden looked bad, I would say Emmanuel Macron looks a billion times worse than Joe Biden's ever looked. At least Dr. Joe Biden was never on tape pushing him, down a flight of stairs or anything like that. So, the people of France, I can see if they're embarrassed, and the people of Italy, they're laughing, and the people of America are too.
Absolutely. Alex Stein, so good to talk to you. Thank you so much for joining us on Power Hour.
Always a pleasure. Talk to you again soon.
Joining us now is Benim Ben Taliblau, Senior Director of FDD's Iran program. Benim, thank you so much for your time. Donald Trump is refusing to rule out US involvement in the Israel-Iran conflict, but he says, no one knows what I'm going to do. At this point where it seems things are really heating up, what do you expect we are likely going to see from the president?
Well, it's a pleasure to be with you, and there's no doubt the President of the United States is keeping the cards that he's playing quite close to his chest, but make no mistake, he has quite a lot of cards here. The president could simply turn the other cheek and look at a whole host of other international issues and let the Israelis continue to pick away at the Islamic Republic's missile, military, and nuclear apparatus. The president has the option of joining in on a counter-proliferation campaign, particularly to target the heavily fortified nuclear facility of Fordo. Or the president, who knows, may even look to make good on his threats of going after the political leadership of the Islamic Republic. And that was a direct reference to the supreme leader of Iran, Ali Khamenei, who the president has referenced in his tweets and messages. So there's a whole host of options available to him. He recently ended another National Security Council meeting just about this with his cabinet. And it's looking more likely than not, potential U.S. entry could be likely, but no one knows exactly when, how, or what the conditions that might change his mind would be. But no doubt he's playing these cards closely.
So we know that Israel needs a bunker buster bomb to destroy Fordo's nuclear facility, which you mentioned. We know America has that. If the US uses it, what impact will it have? And I suppose, what are the consequences?
Well, already you have Iranian officials as well as Iranian government-linked social media channels threatening to widen the war. Before American entry, these threats of widening the war are designed to deter American involvement and raise the costs of that involvement. Should America actually go in, then it means that the Islamic Republic is likely going to have to make good on some of those threats. There's veiled threats against closing the Strait of Hormuz or impacting maritime travel, shipping, and commerce, particularly when it comes to energy in the Strait of Hormuz and Persian Gulf. Another likely option available to the regime, if it wishes to draw blood, is using its more close-range and short-range ballistic missiles, which are considerably more accurate than those it has launched at Israel, at the constellation of U.S. bases on the southern tier of the Persian Gulf or in places like Iraq, as it did in January 2020, for example.
So, as we know from reporting from the New York Times, that Iran is preparing to strike US bases in the Middle East if America launches an attack on the country. What are the risks if this spirals into a wider regional conflict?
Well, in so many ways, we've been living in a world brought to you by a wider regional conflict, given the seven-front war that we've seen since October 7 ebb and flow in the post-October 7 Middle East. So in so many ways, we're already there. It's just a measure of scale and scope and how you measure this stuff. Beyond that, there's no doubt the regime will want to try to internationalize the conflict. But just as it has failed to escalate against Israel, which is a conventionally superior adversary, the Islamic Republic will find it considerably harder to escalate against America as well. Admittedly, there is, again, that constellation of bases and diplomatic facilities which are within closer range of Iran. But the Iranians must remember that if they do draw American blood, that is a clear red line for President Trump. And you even saw President Trump act on that red line decisively in 2019 and 2020 during the Iraq crisis.
Ayatollah Khamenei has reportedly handed over a significant share of his authority to the Revolutionary Guard Supreme Council. What more can you tell us about this?
Well, the government of the Islamic Republic is at once a parallel structure and it's at once a very hierarchical structure. No doubt after the decapitation or deracination of lots of Iran's military elite, they're going to want to try to find a way to rebalance and try to keep responding against Israel. But no doubt the supreme leader is a title meant to be taken rather literally, but he is an individual that is 86 years old, that is highly ideological in his enmity and hatred of Israel and America. So that certainly clouds much of his judgment. The Revolutionary Guard is very much cut from the same cloth, so certainly no better there. But I just think it's just a sign of the times that there's different elements of the regime trying to do different things.
I want to talk to you about the posts that you mentioned earlier. Donald Trump says that we know where the Supreme Leader is hiding. He wrote on X, we know exactly where the so-called Supreme Leader is hiding. He is an easy target, but is safe there. We are not going to take him out, at least not for now. But we don't want missiles shot at civilians or American soldiers, and our patience is wearing thin. Now, Ayatollah Khamenei says that the battle begins. In a post, he followed up that we will show no mercy to the Zionists, or we will show the Zionists no mercy, rather. So what sort of impact do these messages have?
Well, they're designed to respond to one another, but more broadly, again, this is Khamenei kind of projecting. At this point in time, Khamenei remains the longest-running autocrat in contemporary Middle Eastern history. Again, he's an 86-year-old individual who's holding hostage a nation of 88 million people, many of whom actually despise his views and have a fundamentally different conception of what is and is not in the Iranian national interest. But between Trump and Khamenei, there's a whole world of difference. And both of these leaders are looking to use public messaging to try to bolster their deterrence. But beyond that, they're very different messages.
Okay, and Iran has banned government officials from using mobile phones and other devices amid concerns growing inside Tehran that Israel is using the phones to track and target the country's leader. Do you have any more insight on that?
Well, you've also seen, in addition to the statements about limiting the phone use and limiting the digital footprint of not just what's left, again, of the political and military elite, but also of their physical security, to try to move them into a more kind of beta, proto, non-electronic state to make it harder for them to be traced digitally and on cyberspace. You're seeing that being merged with rolling internet blackouts in some cities and some towns, which I think could be a dress rehearsal for what we saw back in November 2019 as well, which is to limit and control the information environment available to the Iranians, because even in the middle of a shooting war, the government of the Islamic Republic fears its own people more than it even fears foreign bombs.
Ben Taliblau, Senior Director of FDD's Iran program, thank you so much for speaking to us on Power Hour.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Pleasure. Thank you so much.
Joining us now is America's psychiatrist, Dr. Carol Lieberman. Thank you so much for your time. There's more and more drama coming out of the Diddy trial. A federal judge gave the defence and prosecution in Sean Diddy Combs' trial a pretty stern warning, noting that there were people violating the court's sealing order and revealing information about a private proceeding. And this comes after the jury was shown videos of alleged freak-offs. What more can you tell us?
Well, yes, this trial has been really somewhat out of control from the beginning, between what is being presented at trial and the extreme behaviors, shall we say, of P. Diddy, and then the people who were testifying, talking about all kinds of sexual and violent and very things that people don't generally hear about in their daily life. I mean, freak-offs, for example. What was particularly interesting recently, some of the latest challenges, is that the judge decided to remove one of the jurors who was a Black man from the Bronx who had given different descriptions of where he lived. One was the Bronx would have been appropriate in terms of fitting into where that court has authority, the Southern Court in New York. But he also then mentioned that he sometimes lived with his girlfriend in New Jersey. And it wasn't really clear how much time he spent in each place and which one was really his home. And it seemed like he had kind of lied about where he lived in order to get to be a juror. And, that obviously there's a lot of questions with that, because why did he want to be a juror? Did he want to particularly make sure that things went well for P. Diddy, or, what was the purpose? Or was, of course, people like to be on famous trial juries because of sometimes afterwards they get a chance to write a book or all kinds of and get interviewed and so on. But the ironic part of it is that they replaced him with the first alternate, who was a man in his mid 50s who lived in Westchester, a white man. And so, of course, P. Diddy's attorneys were saying, no, this isn't fair. That's not a juror of his peers and so on. But the judge really didn't, take that into, well, I'm sure he took it into consideration, but he didn't find that enough to be a reason to, call a mistrial. So that's really sort of the question that's left. Is it going to be, are the defense attorneys going to try to get a mistrial, or are they going to, do they feel that with what has been presented so far, that P. Diddy would be acquitted and then they wouldn't want a mistrial because, it would probably be retried, and so then should just be happy with what they have.
Thank you for bringing us up to speed. I want to talk to you about R. Kelly, disgraced singer R. Kelly, who's currently serving a 30-year sentence for federal racketeering and sex trafficking convictions, was hospitalised after he overdosed in prison. Now, his attorney claims that prison staff administered a dangerously high dose of his medication, potentially leading to the overdose. And we know that he normally takes medication for anxiety and sleep medication as well. Is that right?
Yes. This is sort of an interesting story as well, sort of a mystery, because there's more to it. Before this happened, this overdose, his attorneys had been trying to get him changed to a different prison because they're saying that there is a plot to kill him. And they spoke with one of the prisoners who actually gave a declaration and said, yes, that the prison, somebody from the prison staff had asked him to be involved in a plot to kill R. Kelly. And so then after that, that's when this overdose happened. And so, of course, the attorneys are trying to make the connection by saying, well, yes, they want to kill him. They want to give him an overdose to kill him so that we don't explore what this plot really was.
Okay. Now, Justin Bieber, he shared the breakdown of a friendship on his Instagram account. Now, the singer posted screenshots of text messages between himself and a friend where he declared the friendship is officially over. He also said asking a traumatized person not to be traumatized is simply mean. This also comes amid concerns around Justin Bieber's well-being. What did you make of the fallout?
Yes, well, this is just, we're seeing him disintegrate before our eyes, and it's really very sad. He has been having odd behavior for months now. And it's, in my opinion, it is because of the P. Diddy trial, because there are reports, it seems to be true that we know that Justin Bieber was allowed to be alone with P. Diddy, when he was first getting into music. And, he was with him, and P. Diddy said something about, he's, a teenage boy and he's about to have like the weekend of his life, doing all kinds of things. And so there's enough implication, enough reports that that P. Diddy may have exposed Justin Bieber to some sexual abuse or some kind of sexual activities that scarred him, that traumatized him. And so when this case, Diddy's case came, as it got closer and closer to the trial, Justin Bieber has been just falling apart because it's bringing up the memories of whatever that trauma was related to P. Diddy. And so now this latest thing of where he ends a friendship with a friend, online, is just sort of the next. I mean, he's very agitated. He's very, he's already in an agitated state because of the trial. And so he just, is easily angered towards this friend. I mean, if the trial hadn't been going on, if this had been before the trial, he wouldn't have reacted so strongly and so quickly.
Yeah, it's interesting and very sad to watch him struggle and struggle so publicly. But America's psychiatrist, Dr. Carol Lieberman, we have to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us on Power Hour. For all the Royal News, we are joined by News Corp columnist Angela Mollard. Angela, great to see you.
Hey, hi, good to see you.
The King and Queen, they have been spotted at Royal Ascot. Of course, this is a really important event, a cornerstone of the British summer season, and one especially close to the late Queen Elizabeth's heart. But Princess Catherine, she was supposed to appear but withdrew just hours before. What actually happened?
That's right. And it's really interesting because she was on the rundown. There was a certain carriage that she was in. All the media were expecting her to be here. But this shows how dynamic her life is at the moment, that she may be there, she may not be there. And that will all be related to how she's feeling. And I think the key thing that we don't think about is we think, OK, it's like us leaving the house. We decide to go out, half an hour and we're out the door. That is not how it works for her. Of course, she has to have hair and makeup. She has to get dressed. She has to time when she's going to eat things or go to the bathroom. So it's a whole strategic exercise for her to go out, going to Trooping the Colour as she did in the last week, and the Order of the Garter. And she also went to the Victoria and Albert Museum for an event there. Those are 3 big events in 1 week. For us, it might be that we see her for a split second on our phones, but for her, there'll be a whole day of preparation around that, and particularly an event like Royal Ascot. So I think what this message this is sending to us is that, yes, she has passed through her cancer battle, but that doesn't mean that reevaluation of what is balance in her life is still not an ongoing feature for her, that she's woken up that morning perhaps and gone, gosh, I'm exhausted. Those days were really long, and I'm going to choose me now. And I'm going to choose me because I want to have a long participation in this monarchy, and I want it to count for something. And, you know, if you think about it, we go out as well. Nobody's got a camera trained on us. She has to be on for every second of that day. There is no kind of looking down. There's no yawning. There's no getting caught out. The attention that requires would be mentally really demanding. So, you know, we've got to expect that this is going to happen, and from other members of the royal family too.
Absolutely. Well, it would have been exciting for everyone else at Ascot. Disappointing, I suppose, that Princess Catherine was not there, but at least they got to see King Charles and Queen Camilla.
And those gorgeous hugs between Zara and the King, and, you know, it's good. It's good to see the other members of the royal family.
Absolutely. Now, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle are losing staff once again. 4 staff members have left in recent weeks, according to People magazine. And they're, of course, not the first staff members to quit. Around 20 staff members have quit working for Harry and Meghan since they first moved to California 5 years ago. What's happening here?
Look, this is interesting because they just hired new staff members who are going to be across the team, really good people who had been working for major groups like Google and Apple and Netflix. So very, very experienced people. I think the issue continues to be why they leave staff is because there is no strategic purpose at the heart of what they do. Everything they do is very erratic. Now, you imagine working in a team like that where 1 minute we're doing this thing, but then we're doing this thing, or there's a very reactive approach to things. So, for instance, when Harry lost his court case in the UK over security, he was bang in front of the BBC within 24 hours. There's not the thought and the process and the strategy that makes working for somebody a pleasurable and culturally kind of, uplifting experience. This would be very challenging. Now, whether or not they can change this or not, because the problem with this is that this is not how the monarchy works. The monarchy keeps people for a long time. They have an idea of what they're going to do. If they shift direction, it's like a ship moving very, very, very slowly, and they'll try a new approach, as we've seen with their use of social media. It just didn't happen overnight. Whereas everything that Meghan and Harry does, it's knee-jerk. And so leaving, Megxit, Meghan's business, so many things that Harry does. I'm going to do this, and then Centre Barley's falling over, and he's saying he's going to write, when he was going to write Spare, and then there was some idea that maybe there were problems with Spare. He told too much. There's not the thought that's there's not the thought that's going into this. There's not strategy, and for people to work in that environment must be very, very hard. They all sign NDAs though. If they could, one of them could actually speak out at length, we'd get a much better idea of what it's like in there.
Well, we do have an update on Meghan Markle's new lifestyle brand As Ever. Apparently, she'll be releasing new products. In an episode with Arise with Emma Greed, Meghan explained that she'd been planning to offer plenty more products. Let's take a listen to this.
Okay, let's take this opportunity to grow, to have exponentially more SKUs as well as more inventory. And that's what we've been doing. We went right back to making sure we could scale up to that level.
Yes.
And have the quality meet the quantity, which was very key. And then if we have that opportunity of more time, the luxury of that is, well, the products that have been in development that were going to be punted to this quarter, should we pull this in to this next launch?
What do you make listening to her on that podcast, first of all?
I find it so frustrating because we all know a good, successful business is one that launches and has their products available. These sold within 45 minutes, but she can spin anything in her favour. There she's saying, oh, you know, we were able to pull these products forward. Well, why were those products not ready to go the second week? Why was there not more stock? You know, if she believes in her product, then she needs to have more of it. You don't want people thinking they'd like some jam and then can't get some jam or some flour sprinkles, although goodness knows how she manages to sell those flour sprinkles. Go out to your garden, honestly. You know, it's just... She is the master of spin. The problem is that if you're going to spin well, you want people to believe it. And none of us are believing it.
No.
We're just thinking, this is so lightweight. This is not a businesswoman. She's talking all the time about being a businesswoman, but she's not showing that she's a businesswoman.
Absolutely. No, well said. Now, the Duchess of York, Sarah Ferguson, has opened up on social media, highlighting the importance of mental health awareness. She revealed that she recently visited a clinic in Zurich which specialises in care for people struggling with complex mental health issues, also around addiction. What more can you tell us about this?
This actually came from a piece she's written for the UK Telegraph, which is, I love it when people of stature like this actually sit down and write a piece, being a journalist, to get it straight from their own mouth. And what she talks about is the huge number of personal scars that she is carrying and the trauma that she went through. And not a lot of people know that her mother left her when she was 12 years old. Susan Barantes went off to South America. She had fallen in love with a polo player. And for Sarah and her older sister Jane, who of course lives in Australia, this was very, very confronting. This is abandonment. And I think this goes to the heart. And she speaks about why she falls for, you know, quick things and ideas and people loving her, because there's a loss of love in her life. Her mother then went on and actually was killed in a car accident the year after Princess Diana died. So for Fergie to talk about this loss, she also in the piece that she's written, and as you say on her social media, has talked about potentially that she has ADHD. So I cannot see all this, but what's really lovely is that the more honest she is, and she has been through her cancer battles with both skin and breast cancer, is that we're getting an insight into this woman who, for many years, particularly when I lived in Britain, was called things like the Duchess of Pork or, you know, Fat Fergie, which is not how we talk about people now and shouldn't talk about people. I think there's a lot of goodwill towards Fergie. She's an incredible mother. She's very loyal to Prince Andrew. And the more she talks about, not in a Meghan-style way of telling her truth, but in a way that connects with other people, I think the love and the feeling for her will continue.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, very powerful, and to open up and be so vulnerable about her experiences, I think will absolutely connect in an actually authentic way. Now, Prince Harry's Invictus Games Foundation has announced that 6 nations have come forward with ambitions to host the 2029 Games, and among those submitting a bid was Ukraine, despite the ongoing conflict.
It's hard to believe that you could hold an event like that with the ongoing geopolitical issues that are going on there. But interestingly, of course, Harry went to Ukraine just a couple of months ago and met with veterans who had, people who'd worked within the military, but also those who were in rehabilitation centres as a result of the injuries they've sustained during the war. So we understand, according to the outgoing head of Invictus, that there are 100,000 people in Ukraine now who are amputees or who are people that could potentially take part in the Invictus Games. Just the notion that Ukraine may be in a space to be able to do that in 4 years' time is heartwarming. Whether or not it happens, it shows why Harry's central sort of philosophy around Invictus will have, resonance for years to come, because it's not just, war as it continues will have the Iranians, the Israelis, there's all these countries and all these people who are affected and who could potentially take part in these sorts of games in the future. But what a lovely idea to think that Zelensky might win that war and that the games can take place there.
Angela,
I mean, who knows, but hopefully.
Hopefully. Angela Mollard, thank you so much for joining us on Power Hour.
Thanks.
And that is Power Hour. Thank you for your company. Make sure you subscribe to Sky News Australia on YouTube.